my name's Kara, and I've been having some issues with DHR here in Alabama. And I've listened to a few of your shows, and I gave the local DHR office here in Chilton County a notice of discharge and a notice of restoration, which they have defaulted on. I go to court Thursday.
You said Chilton County?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is just above Montgomery?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah, they took my child out of the hospital. She's in the NICU unit at the hospital here, and they put her straight into foster care. Never gave anybody a chance to even place with a relative or anything like that. And
did you sign a safety plan?
No. Everything I have signed VDOT, CDOT. On my 72-hour hearing, I challenged jurisdiction. Eventually, I didn't really know about your method or anything at the time. So at the hearing, I challenged jurisdiction. I kept at it. I went in there and I stated common law jurisdiction. Eventually, she asked me a question, and my motherly instincts kicked in. Like, what I heard was, oh, if you just answer my question, I'll give her back to you. So I answered her, and from that, she said, oh, well, we've stated jurisdiction. I'm taking a recess. And she never called me back into the court.
Because if they said to you, ma'am, what's your name? And what is your name? You said it was Nancy? What did you say your name is?
Tara.
Tara. Okay, so she just asked you a simple question. Tara, are you, what's your kid's name? Susie? What's your daughter's name?
My name is Phoenix.
Okay. If she said, Tara, are you the mother of Phoenix? And you said yes, she's got jurisdiction over you.
Okay.
Because it's like say she was in another dimension, she's only like in the two-dimensional world, like paper world.
The right answer would actually be the name is actually irrelevant. Yet.
No, any answer creates jurisdiction. Other than saying apples, pineapples, cucumbers, what? If you say anything that sounds any kind of like a legitimate answer, like something that's coherent, then that shows that they have jurisdiction. It shows that they have some sort of control. That they'll pull the string and your mouth will move. They're your puppet. They got control. They have that's whole jurisdiction means control. If I ask you a question, do you answer in a coherent manner? Yes. It's like if I pull the string on this puppet and I want this puppet to put on a puppet show, and I want him to raise his left hand, and I pull the string, does the left hand move? Yes. Okay, then I got control of this puppet. So when they said, are you Tara? Are you the mother of Phoenix? It says apples, cucumbers, pineapples, what? Are you talking to me in legalese? Are you talking to me man to man? Are you talking to me woman to woman? Are you talking to me like through some crazy legalese language? It's like, no, the judge will never say I'm talking to you man to man. They say, well, then this isn't on the record. This is off the record, right? The judge will say, no, this is on the record. It's like, no, I don't speak legalese. I'm not joining your little group. I'm not being part of this little activity. No, I don't. They're not required to speak legalese. I will not speak legalese, and I will not entertain any questions, directed to me in legalese. I will not, if you serve me a question in legalese, I refuse to respond. It's like I said to Carly just a little while ago, if somebody serves you up a plate of pasta at the restaurant, it's like he went there for fish, and then he'll say, what's this? He says, it's pasta. It's like, what do you want me to do with it? It's like, well, I want you to eat it and pay me for it. I ain't eating it and paying for it. Well, you ordered it. I didn't order it. Look, you can't order me to pay for something that, no, you can't, you have no control over me. No, I haven't even placed my order before, you yet. I said, I wish for fish. It's like, well, you're going to get pasta and like it. It's like, no, you could put pasta on here and you're going to pay the bill, So, like I said, any kind of competent answer or any kind of where there's just showing that you're actually just going with it, like if the guy waiter throws a plate of pasta in front of Bob, he picks up a fork, starts eating and goes, okay, and he just starts eating it. Well, then he's going to be liable for it, even though he didn't order any pasta. He knows he's at a restaurant. He knows the rules. You eat food, you got to pay for it. You can't just say, well, I thought it was free. You threw a plate of pasta in front of me, and I thought it was free. It's like everybody knows it's implied that you go to a restaurant, they give you food. When you're done, you pay. So everybody knows the rules. You go to court, they call your name, you answer it, they got jurisdiction over you. They got control over you. But no, you could challenge control anytime you wish. You could say you never had control over me, the judge, even though you think you had jurisdiction because you played this little game with me in court. No, at no time did I appear as a defendant. Because that's what I explained to the man in Chicago. He said to me, he says, well, I'm a defendant, I said, no, you're not. I said, let me put it this way. Whose case is this? He says, it's Cook County's case, right? It's the case. Cook County is creating the case. They're building the case and they're creating the case, right? He said, yes, it's their case against you. I was like, that's right. It's not your case. It's not the PETA case. It's Cook County versus PETA. It's Cook County's case. Who's got control of the case? Who has control of where the case goes? Who has control of when the case is going to be heard, or where it's going to be heard, or what court it's going to be brought before? Who's got control of the case? Cook County. I said, now, why would you want to defend Cook County's case? Say it was Cook County's castle. Would you want to defend Cook County's castle and be the one who gets the arrow in the head? Or you just say, that's not my castle, it's Cook County's castle. Let them defend their own effing castle. I got my own problems. I got my own case. I got my own castle to worry about. I'm not defending it. I don't accept the title as defendant. You can't force the title on me. It's just like the Queen of England. She wants to give me a knighthood, or she wants to give me a lordship, or she wants to make me a squire of the crown or the court, whatever. It's like, no. I said, I can't accept the title. I'm too busy. Why? I'm a dad. I got a farm. I got things to do. I can't be burdened with another title. So, there's certain titles that you can't run from, like being a dad or a brother or a son or a nephew or an uncle. There's no way I could avoid those titles. I'm bound to those titles. I have a duty and obligation to live and abide by those rules of being a member of my family, of being a citizen. A citizen just means a member of a family. So I'm bound by those rules of uncle, dad, and I got to act accordingly. I have a duty to them, my family. Just like Bali said over here a little while ago, the doctor asked him about his kid. He said, the doctor said, my children were born citizens. And Bali said, well, his wasn't. It's like, no, Bali, yours was. Your children were born as citizens. It means you're members of a family. He's born of the Mann family. His last name is Mann. So I said, no, they were born citizens. He said, the doctor's just trying to trick you into thinking he meant citizens of the UK. Members of the UK family. The doctor didn't say that the children were UK citizens. He said, my children were citizens, members of a family. So you people don't know what the doctor's saying, or maybe the doctor's, trying to trick you. But it's the same thing that judge did to you. She just tricked you. She asked you a question, and you didn't see. That's Exhibit A that we put into the court on Thursday, was that the man was an idiot. And now, how many people want to call themselves an idiot when you've been taught your whole life that the word idiot is some sort of, something disparagingly, or to be, or a pejorative term? And we've made a very simple, word idiot as example too. We said idiot, literally a private person as opposed to one taking parts in public affairs. So he's just saying, look, literally I'm a private person. That's my property. You came into my house. You took my pot out of my basement. Literally, I'm a private person as opposed to one taking part in public affairs. So when the judge realizes there's an idiot before him in court, he knows that he can't force an idiot to talk. He knows anything that comes out of this guy's mouth is going to be bombastic idiocracy. It's going to be idiotic. So he's going to be like, this is all nonsense. It's like, that's right, I'm an idiot. You say, are you Tara? Are you the mother of Phoenix? You say, unicorns, bananas, pineapples, all mine. And she's going to say, you're an idiot. He says, idiot, private. Oh, yeah, idiot, private person, exposed to one taking part of public affairs. Idiot, yes, I understand that. Yes, I comprehend what you said there. Yes, I'm an idiot. You understand I'm an idiot, Judge? Yeah, good. Now, how do you believe you have jurisdiction over a private person? So like I said, the whole thing I tell people all the time is you people think that you could, these guys are word nerds. The people on the bench, the lawyers, they're all word nerds. And you people think you're going to open your mouth in an open court and out word nerd the word nerds. And I say to people all the time, when you have the judge you know, especially like in a child custody case like that, and she's giving you a whole bunch of questions, or he's slinging out the questions. Tell him, can you put your questions in a form of writing, and can you give me leave of court, you know, for 3 days or 30 days, so I could properly place a proper answer before this court. I have to seek out legal competent counsel. Competent counsel doesn't mean a lawyer. You know, you could have a guidance counselor or a job placement counselor. A counselor doesn't mean just somebody who does legalese. So you just say, I want to seek out competent counsel. So especially when it comes to something that important, say, look, man, especially something as important as the placement of my child or the custody of my child, you know, well, you don't say child, the placement of my property or the custody of my property. You know, any question that you want to present to me, you have to do it in a form of writing, you know, and sign it. And then I'll go seek out competent counsel and I'll place a proper answer before this court. But I'm not here to argue with you, Judge. I'm here to argue with the prosecutor over there, you know, the state attorney who stole my property. You know, that's where my argument lies, not with you, Judge, in the black robe. My argument is with that state prosecutor, the attorney over on that side, and have explained why his client, the DHR, stole my property or robbed me of my property or why there was a theft of my property. That's the only thing I'm here to address today. I'm not here to play 20 questions with you, Judge. And if you want to question me, put it in a form of writing, and I'll answer it in that manner. But I will not do it, you know, in an open court, you know, because you're a word nerd. You know, you're a word guru. You know, I'm not. You're speaking legalese. You're speaking a foreign language. I'm not going to play this game with you. Is this a common law hearing? No. Well, then, you're some sort of bound by some sort of Alabama code of 1975, and she'll say, well, yes. And say, well, then, I'm not up on my code. You know, I'm not skilled in such a language. So, you know, you're going to have to place it in the form of writing, and you're going to have to give me time to seek out competent counsel so I could properly answer the court. But honestly, the judge isn't supposed to be saying a damn thing.
Okay.
So, when was your kid taken? I mean, how old was your kid?
She was born May the 17th, and she was stolen June 26th.
Well, what was their reason why they took them a month later?
She was in the NIC unit. She was a month early, and I was on a valid legal prescription, which stating for a policy purpose, they had to contact DHR, and upon them do a little bit of investigating. And at that point in time, they should have just dropped out and went on with their business. And so when they approached me, I started doing a little bit of investigating. My husband and I both did, and we wouldn't comply with them. They didn't give me any valid reason for compliance, so I wouldn't comply. Gave them like an affidavit of truth about like the birth certificate, right to travel, and then the day she was getting discharged from the hospital, I was supposed to pick her up and called up there, and they wouldn't give me any information on her. They said she was in social services custody. And
yeah, because when you start doing affidavits of truth and birth certificate and stuff, they know you have absolutely no clue about the law. They know you are totally clueless. That's exactly why they do it. So they know they could get away with it. They know like it's some crazy free man nonsense, and they're going to be able to get away. Just because, like I said, it's called a shibboleth, and I explain to people what a shibboleth is all the time. It's just a certain word or certain sound that they hear that makes them perk up their ears and say, "Oh boy, did she just say birth certificate? No, you know, statement of affidavit of truth. Oh my God, she has no effing clue. She's just getting this stuff off the YouTube channel somewhere. Holy cow, she is totally clueless. We're going to eat her for lunch."
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing that now. I was just trying to do anything and everything I could to protect
her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, everybody does. Everybody just tries to look at YouTube, and they look at all this guru nonsense, and they just say, you know, wow, look at all the stuff we got to put in. But like with Jesse and Jonathan, when they got their kid back, all I had to do was point across the room, says she robbed me of my property, and looked at the judge, said I require you to give me, you know, restore property. And the judge was like, why should I? You know, why don't you do what social service and DHR tells you to do? And she says, you know, don't you want to know why they robbed you? And she said, well, I don't care why a rapist rapes me. I don't care. I require you to restore the property, and that's all I require of you. I restore my property. And then the judge said the court is recessed, and the next day, the prosecutor walked across the lobby and said, when do you want your property? It's going to take us 4 days, it was going to take us till Friday to get your kids back. Can you give us till Friday? And she said, okay, fine. So like I said, it's because you just don't know how to say simple words. You guys went on and on and on and on with this tirade of all this ridiculous nonsense and just say, I was robbed. Like, the judge is a mandated reporter. Did you tell the judge you were robbed of your property?
Have I? No.
Well, see, then the judge doesn't know. It's just like my sister's a mandated reporter because she's a school teacher. If some kid came up to my sister and said, my daddy raped me, my sister's got to report it. She's got to go down to the sheriff's department and report a crime. Or she's got to report it to her supervisor, who will get the sheriff's department down there to take the report. But the judge is a mandated reporter. If you say, I've been robbed of my property, the judge will say, what property? The property right before you. Like I said, with Jesse and Jonathan, I did Exhibit A, B, C, and D. And Exhibit A, B, C, and D was the 4 pictures of her 4 kids. So, and like I said, they were charged with gun and drug charges. They had pot in the house and gun in the house, whatever, and bullets, whatever. And, the house was a little bit of a mess because they're like, they're good people and all, but they're like agrarian. They eat like, sprouts and, natural chickens and stuff like that. So obviously the house isn't squeaky clean. And, they're happy people. The kids are happy living like that. They're happy living, rugged like that. Hey, they call it rugged. They call it a pig pen. The state will say, that's no way to live. They say, well, that's the way your great-great-grandparents lived. It's like, yeah, well, they also lived in a cave, Well, they don't live that bad, but you know what I'm saying. We got by somehow. But they're like, well, no, the kids should have Clorox bleached floors. And like, look, we do fine. We don't need all that, So they thought they were never going to see their kids again. But like I said, all they had to do was basically make a simple claim to the court that they were robbed of their property. And they required the judge to report it to the sheriff's department for the sheriff's department to get back their property. Find out who's holding my property and give it back. See, like I said to people a million times, man, and this is what gets me tired all the time, is that the only reason why government exists is to secure and protect the property of man. They don't secure to protect your child. They don't not to exist to secure and protect your car, your bank account. They don't exist to secure and protect you from getting fired from your job. The job from any centralized government is to secure and protect the property of man, each other's property. Now you join together, as a collective and say, well, we'll get each other's back. If some form of enemy, we'll protect each other. We'll make sure each other's property, is secured and protected. We'll get together as a big group. So when some bad guys come in, we can kick their ass because one-on-one we're going to lose. So we better do this together. So that's what the whole trick is of property, the word property. So you have to make the claim for property.
Okay, at court, should I take a picture with me and just continue to refer to her as property and then...
What you need to do is keep your mouth shut. That's the worst thing you guys, especially women, is horrible like that. You guys have to do it all in writing. See, because that's what happened with Jonathan and Jesse. When I helped them for 10 days, her husband still didn't believe me. He went on and on for about an hour or two talking all that crazy nonsense affidavit of truth, all this nonsense that he was doing. She talked 2 sentences and she was done. They got the kids back by her 2 sentences. They didn't get done with his 10,000 sentences. They got back with her sentence. I was robbed of property. I require you to restore my property. I was robbed of property. I require, the return of property. That's all you have to say. I was robbed of property, or there was a theft of my property. She took my property. He took my property. I require you to return it. That's all you got to do.
Okay.
That's all Jesse did. And I kept messing with Jesse for 10 days. I cursed her every curse in a book you could possibly imagine you could call a woman. I called her everything on planet Earth to try to get her ready for court. That the judge was going to try to trick her to say something else, or like you. He's like, well, should I say this when I go to court? When I say this, no, you don't say an effing thing. The same thing I did with Jesse. No, you don't say an effing thing. So I kept tricking her for 10 days, trying to get her to talk to me over the phone. And then she finally got it to the point in her head where I was like, I got this. I was robbed of property. I order the restoration of property. I require the immediate restoration. I require the immediate return. I order the return. I said, can you just handle like simple words like that and make believe you lost every other, word in your vocabulary and just keep repeating that like a parrot. I said, because that's the only way it's going to work. I said, you can't start talking to these people. If you talk to these people, they're going to have jurisdiction over you. They're going to ask you a question, you're going to give them an answer, and then now they got control of it. You keep telling.
Anything I've signed I've signed everything without prejudice. Am I bound by anything I've signed?
No, like I said, whether you signed it with or without prejudice, all that stuff is just silly.
Okay.
With or without prejudice. Anytime you wish to withdraw, you can withdraw. And that's why I asked you, did you voluntarily place the kid into custody?
No.
Well, then how did they get it? Did they charge you with a crime?
No.
There's always two ways to put the child into custody. You have to be charged with a crime. Did you ask them, have you been charged with a crime?
No, I never had the opportunity to.
Okay. How hard is it to go to the court clerk and say to the court clerk, in my case file, was I charged with a crime? Is this criminal or is this a civil matter? And she'll say, well, this is family law, so this isn't criminal. And she says, well, I don't know. It's like, fine, that's fine. I'm going to go down to the sheriff's department. You go down to the sheriff's department. You say to the sheriff, do you have any criminal investigation against me or my husband? And they'll say, no. So, okay, that's fine. And then you go over the city prosecutor. If you just live out in the county? You don't live in the city?
I live in the city limits.
A city of what?
Clanton.
Oh, you're in Clanton? That's funny.
Yeah.
And you got that big flag and stuff down there. I know where you are. So, what you could do is then there would be a city prosecutor. You go to the city prosecutor and says, do you have a pending case? Are you investigating me for a crime? And if he says no, then you know you're not charged with a crime. Because they're mandated reporters, so either they had to have the police department, the sheriff's department down there, the county sheriff's investigating you, or the city police department investigating you, or the city prosecutor investigating you, or the state attorney's office investigating you, or the county district attorney. So if none of those people have a case pending against you, the only other way they could hold your child is based upon a contract. That's the only other way they could have it. There's no other way they could help you holding your child. They're going to claim that there's an agreement between the parties to place the child into state custody. All right?
Yeah, I guess.
You guess. Well, how other way can they hold it? Either you're charged with a crime or it's based upon a contract.
I mean, I guess speaking to me, that would bind me in a contract, wouldn't it?
There's only two ways they could do it. They could do it based upon a contract, and then, like I said, and all you have to do is when they base it upon a contract, you just say to them, is this based upon, are you charging me with a crime? And they say, no, we are not charging you with a crime. Well, then that's great. You're not charging me with a crime? No, lovely, wonderful. Then the only other way you could have my child in custody then is based upon a contract. Now, you could say the judge did a sneaky contract attack on you. Fine. Who cares? Let her do that she did a sneaky contract attack on you. I don't care. Because any time that you wish for the return of your child based upon any form of contract, whether it was verbal contract or judicial contract or any kind of contract, you just say, well, I just wish to break the contract between me and the state of Alabama, and I just wish for the immediate return of my child. And you know where to find that, right?
Yeah.
You don't know under the Alabama. Did you ever read the Alabama Administrative Codes? Did you ever hear those yet?
No.
Do you know that everything under Alabama Department of Human Resources moves under the 660 Code?
No.
Do you know that?
No.
Have you ever heard of that?
Have not.
Okay. Well, this took me many, many years to find. And you're going to love it, because if you're not charged with a crime, the only other thing you could be is based upon a contract. And you're going to love this line. It comes straight out of their code book. And it says the department has no authority under a voluntary agreement to hold a child against the parent's wishes. See, so making a wish, the judge knows when you say I wish for the immediate return of my property, the judge knows what a wish means. So it's not some silly word, wish, because why would they write it in their own code book? So wish is a huge thing. Wish is a huge word in law. So it just says the Department of DHR has no authority under a voluntary agreement to hold the child against the parent's wishes. So There's only two ways they could be holding, voluntary or involuntarily. And if it's involuntarily, it's because you're charged with a crime. So if you're not charged with a crime, then you have to say, oh, there was a voluntary agreement. And then you just say the department has no authority under a voluntary agreement to hold a child against the parent's wishes. It says, consequently, the parent has the right at any time to request and receive his child. Voluntary agreements are to only be accepted in situations in which the Department of Human Resources has no hesitancy in the immediate return of the child to his parents. Do you see how simple that rule is?
Yes.
If there's any kind of an agreement, you say, okay, so you got jurisdiction on me, so you believe I placed my child in here voluntarily. If they say, well, yes, this is a voluntary placement. And so really? Well, am I charged with a crime? I'm like, well, no. It's like, they'll say, well, I'm not sure. You're charged with a crime. Well, I know I'm not charged with a crime because social service workers are mandated reporters, correct?
Yeah.
And she'll say, yeah, social workers are mandated reporters. Right. So who went down to the police department? Who went down to the prosecutor's office and charged me with a crime of having drugs in me? Who did it? And it'll be like, well, I don't think anybody did it. It's like, that's right, nobody did it. So if nobody's reported that a crime happened, I'm not charged with doing anything wrong. I'm not charged with a crime. So it has to be based upon a contract. So where's the contract between I and the state? And say, don't give me no nonsense about birth certificates because that's not a contract saying that you have the right to administrate my property. That's my property. It's not my child. It's my property. So that's the whole trick you guys got to get away with, man. You got to get away from calling them children, and you can't let them insult you like they did to Jesse and Jonathan. The judge, I was working with Jesse and Jonathan for 10 days, and it was funny because somebody called me up on my show a year and a half ago, and they said to me, oh, Carl, your shit don't work, and, you're full of crap. And I said, oh, really? I said, I got my kids back, and they're like, well, that's full of shit. I said, let me see. I said, the first parents that call me up on my show, I'll get them their kids back. And until I get their kids back, I'm not going to do another radio show. How's that? I said, is that proof enough? And he was like, well, yeah, that's a good bet. I said, good. And ask any other guru who does this stuff, on the radio. And he said, you tell them the same damn thing. Can you prove that any of this stuff works? If you can, then show us. Take on a case and take it from beginning to end, show us everything you do, and win. And when you win, then come back on and show us how you won, and then we'll believe you and we'll shut up and we'll just listen to you from now on. I said, okay? He said, okay, fine. So then it took 10 days, and it was funny. Before they put a claim I wrote for them, they tried to write it. So she got one from like 6 pages to 4 to 3 to 2 to a page and a half, and I said, that's still too much. We're running out of time. Here, let me tighten it up for you. So I wrote 2-sentence claim, 2-sentence restoration, 2-sentence remedy. 2-sentence claim, 2-sentence remedy. So 4 sentences total. I said, now run with that. So she went down to the court clerks to file it, and then the young clerk lady said, oh, wow, hang on a second. And then she went and got the head clerk, and the head clerk was like running around and said, holy cow, wait a second. They went and got the head judge when they read the 2 sentences of the claim. And the head judge came out, and they were holding their kids for 5 months. And the head judge invited them back to the judge's chambers. And the judge said, well, I see that you got the word property here. And the clerks noticed the word property, and that you claim that you were robbed. See, because they got to report it. They got to run down to the sheriff's department, and they got to report it. So as soon as the clerk read that, she was robbed, they said, holy shit, I got to report this. So she went to the head clerk. So the head clerk said, holy shit, I got to report this. The head clerk said, she went to the head judge, and the head judge was like, shit, he's got to report it. So the judge convinced them. He said, well, he said, well, she comes on to the phone to me on a Friday, and she has trial on Monday. And she said, well, I put your claim in call. We just came all the way back from St. John, which is like an hour-and-a-half ride from the mountains where they live. And Salt Flats they live in, Salt something. I don't remember the name of the town. But anyway, she says to me, the judge was really nice, and the clerks are bumping into each other, trying to, run around trying to figure out, what to do. And I said, yeah, it's the word property that drove him crazy. He said, yeah, that's what the judge said. The judge said that, Lincoln freed the slaves, and we don't call children property anymore. We just call them children. Can you just take that word property out? Can we call them children? And she's like, well, this guy's, pretty well convinced us that they're our property and we better just run with it. And the judge like making funny faces. She's like sucking lemons, like, you know, I don't know who you're getting this advice from, but you know what? Tell them that Lincoln freed the slaves, and no, they're children, they're not property. So then she came home and she called me up like 3 o'clock and she says, "Wow, Carl, we had a great time at the courthouse today. They were really nice. They usually look at us like we're a bunch of nuts and putting all this crazy paperwork in and inch thick worth of nonsense. But boy, they were jumping all over themselves trying to talk to us today." And she said, "Wow, the only thing they wanted us to do was change the word children to property to children." I said, "You dumb effing, you know, C word, and, you know, you dumb bitch." You know, I was just going nuts on her. I said, "You get your ass back in that, you know, vehicle, and you drive your ass down there, and you put that word property back in there, or don't ever call, and you'll never see those kids again, da-da-da-da." And she's like, "Okay, fine, fine. You know how much diesel costs you or fuel costs you? You know, it's like $4 a gallon or a pint or a liter or whatever." I said, "I don't care how much the damn costs you." She said, I said, "You get your effing ass back in that vehicle, and you get your ass back down to St. John." She's like, "An hour and a half ride." I said, "Well, you better get your ass in gear because the car's going to close soon." And she was like, "Fine, fine." I was like, "Oh, little cunt, pissed at me? Pissed at me?" She hung up on me. Oh, I said, "Oh, you little effing." So she changed it back, and she called me up, like on Saturday or Sunday. She said, "Fine, I changed it. I hope you're happy." I said, "Lady, you don't understand. There's a difference between property and child. But children, the judge has jurisdiction and control over children and child. That's in their job description. If you take a look in any DHR 660 thing, it says children, the child, the said infant. It's always infant, child, children, never property. You never see the word the child. The judge has jurisdiction or control over another man's property. You will never see the word property. So define them as property. If they say, "No, we call them children," it's like, well, there's no I in we. I'm not part of your silly society. I'm an idiot. Remember? I'm not legalese. I'm a man. I'm a woman. I'm outside of your silly system. You have no control over me. I am not part of any of your legal society. I'm not a citizen of your silly family. I'm a citizen of my family. And that's my property. And I require you to immediate restoration of my property, and I mean now. And so then that's what they said. When Jesse did that in court on a Monday, they were told to come back first thing in the morning. When they came back first thing in the morning, the Crown met him in the lobby and said, "Who wrote this?" And she said, "She did." He's like, yeah, right. He said, "You a lawyer?" She said, "No." He said, "Well, then who wrote this?" She said, "She did." I said, "Yeah, well, whoever wrote this, just tell them we're scared shitless." And when you went, so then she said she wanted immediately. And she said, "Well, they were all over Canada, over the province, so you got to give us 4 days. And can you give us, I don't know how many days it was, but so you got to give us till Friday." And she's like, "Okay, fine." And what he said was every single one of the cops, the social workers, the police officers, the child psychiatrist, the doctors, everybody took their affidavits out of the case file because you reported a robbery. So they all had to report the robbery because they all swore to and do mandated reporting.